When I bought my little house on Maple Drive, all I wanted was peace. After 20 years in the city, I dreamed of quiet mornings, soil under my nails, and the smell of tomatoes ripening in the sun. My garden wasn't fancy, just rows of daisies, a few lavender bushes, and a wooden fence I built myself. But to me, it was heaven. That was until they showed up. The Homeowners Association. At first, it was just a letter, neatly folded, polite words that felt like a slap. Your property violates HOA regulations. Remove all non-standard vegetation within 7 days. I laughed when I read it. Non-standard vegetation? What did that even mean? But when I asked my neighbor, Mrs. Cleary, she whispered, they don't like people changing the look of the neighborhood. They say your flowers are too bright. Too bright. Imagine that. I thought it was a misunderstanding. I went to the next HOA meeting with cookies and photos of my garden, thinking reason would win. Instead, they barely looked up. The chairwoman, a sharp-faced woman named Linda Graham, said coldly, "This isn't a farm, Mr. Turner. We have standards here." "I'm just growing flowers and vegetables," I replied, trying to stay calm. "I'm not hurting anyone." Linda smiled in that condescending way only people drunk on power do. "It's not about hurting anyone. It's about maintaining order." The room went silent. I could feel every eye judging me. That night I realized something. This wasn't about flowers. It was about control. So I didn't remove my garden. I watered it. I planted more, and the more they complained, the taller my sunflowers grew. A week later, I came home to destruction. The fence was broken, plants uprooted. My garden, the space I poured my soul into, looked like a battlefield. On the dirt lay a notice. Final warning. Property cleared under HOA Code 4.7. Unauthorized modification of landscape. I just stood there, shaking. Every leaf crushed, every bloom torn. My heart felt hollow. But when I looked closer, I noticed something odd. The bottom of the notice had 3 signatures: Linda Graham, Roger Hall, and Ellen Moore, the HOA board members. And that's when I remembered the old folder my realtor gave me years ago, the one labeled Land Deed and Restrictions. That night I dug it out. The original developer's agreement had maps, clauses, and, my hands trembled, signatures. The same 3 names. But the document said something different. Plot 27 is exempt from HOA landscaping restrictions due to prior land use designation. Plot 27, my property. They'd just destroyed land they had no authority over. I smiled through the tears. They thought they'd broken me, but they'd just handed me the rope to hang them away. The next morning I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I brewed my coffee, walked outside, and looked at the wreckage like a soldier surveying a battlefield. My garden was gone, but my spirit, never. Linda and her little HOA army thought they'd silenced me. They had no idea they'd just woken a man who had nothing left to lose. I spent the day gathering everything, photos of the garden before and after, the HOA letters, the land deed, and the original signatures. I scanned every document, labeled every file, and then I printed a poster that said, "HOA destroyed my legal property. Proof inside." By afternoon, I pinned it right on my broken fence. Within an hour, half the neighborhood had stopped by. People whispered, shook their heads, took photos. Turns out, I wasn't the only one Linda had bullied. "Sir," one neighbor said quietly, "they fined me for putting a birdhouse on my porch." Another added, "They made me repaint my front door twice because it wasn't the approved shade of beige." The HOA was feared, but I had something no one else did. Proof. At the next HOA meeting, I walked in early. The room smelled like stale coffee and fake authority. Linda sat at the front table, surrounded by her loyalists, smug as ever. "Mr. Turner," she said with that rehearsed politeness, "I hope you're here to settle your violation fees." I smiled. "Actually, Linda, I'm here to talk about your violation." Her eyes narrowed. "Excuse me?" I opened the folder and placed the land deed on the table, sliding it toward her like a lawyer dropping evidence in a trial. "This," I said calmly, "is the original developer's agreement for my property. Plot 27. Signed by you, Roger. And Ellen? Notice that line?" I pointed. "Plot 27 is exempt from HOA landscaping restrictions." Silence. Linda's face turned pale. Roger leaned in, squinting. "That can't be right." "Oh, it's right," I cut in. "Which means when you tore up my garden, You destroyed property outside your jurisdiction. That's vandalism, trespassing, property damage. You signed it yourselves. The room buzzed. Someone in the back whispered, "He's got them." I leaned forward, voice steady. "Now you can either fix what you broke and apologize publicly, or I can let a lawyer and the local news handle it." Your call. Linda's mask cracked. For the first time, I saw fear. She tried to speak, but I interrupted again. "And before you think I'm bluffing, I've already sent copies of these documents to every homeowner's inbox. Transparency, right?" The gasps around the room were sweeter than victory. I turned, heading for the door. As I reached it, I looked back and said, "You wanted order, Linda. Let's see how you handle justice." That night, my phone didn't stop buzzing, neighbors thanking me, others furious at the HOA, some offering to help rebuild. And me? I just smiled. Because tomorrow, they'd finally see what real revenge looked like. The whole neighborhood held its breath the morning after the meeting. I woke before sunrise, brewed coffee, and stood on my porch watching the light edge. The empty beds where my tomatoes used to climb. It felt like waiting for a verdict. By 8, a pickup rolled up, Mrs. Cleary and 3 others, shovels in hand. Word had spread. Volunteers came to help rebuild. My phone buzzed. "Need anything?" "I'll bring mulch." "Call me if you want me to testify." It wasn't just support. It was a small uprising of decency. At 10, a local reporter knocked. "We heard about the deed. Can we film the rebuild?" I agreed. The camera crew followed us to the yard where neighbors laughed and worked. Kids planted sunflowers larger than their heads. Roger lugged a wheelbarrow. Ellen handed me seeds like an offering. Then Linda arrived. She stood on the sidewalk, hands clenched. Watching like a spectator at an execution, I walked over, dirt under my nails, and met her eyes. For a second, there was nothing but 2 people who had chosen different paths. "You didn't have to humiliate us," she said, voice small. "You didn't have to destroy what wasn't yours," I replied. "But you did." My voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. People stopped and listened. Linda blinked and then, almost inaudible, said, "I'm sorry." It wasn't the scripted apology on TV. It was raw, uneven, the sound of someone admitting they'd been wrong. Neighbors exchanged looks, some surprised, some relieved, some still wary. "What we need," I told everyone, "is a fix that lasts." I raised the deed. This proves jurisdiction, yes. But we also need clear bylaws, an independent review board, and consequences when officers abuse power. Voices rose. "Mrs. Cleary!" suggested community-led guidelines. So taste couldn't become law. A young dad volunteered to organize a homeowners committee. Linda swallowed, then nodded. "I'll sign the petition for oversight," she said. "I'll help rebuild, small but real." We worked until dusk. My garden grew that day not just with plants but with trust. People who had barely nodded before shared tools, recipes, stories. A teenager learned to plant basil. An old man, lonely since his wife passed, found himself laughing over a trowel. Local news covered it the next day. The HOA faced an investigation. Fines were rescinded. Policies were rewritten with homeowner input. Linda stepped down and, in a ceremony, handed me a plaque reading, "For community restoration and courage." I almost laughed at the irony. Instead, I hugged her. That night, on my repaired porch, soil on my hands and stars overhead, I recorded a short message for anyone watching. Stand up, but bring evidence. Document everything. Rally your neighbors. When people cross the line, don't let anger become vengeance. Let it become the force that builds better rules. If this story moved you, share it, subscribe, and tell your neighbor you've got their back. Gardens grow when communities do.